spent many, many years working on Capitol Hill and in DC, and I've been involved in politics. And there's always disagreements, but generally speaking, we always think that we all have the same goal, and that is for the betterment of America. Big policy differences, no question about it. But for the most part, you kind of don't question someone's overall intention. That is obviously out the window in this era of Trump. And now that he has unbridled power with nobody putting any holds on him, it's out in the open. It's out in the open. So um, they want to make themselves richer. It's just Trump and a few oligarchs, Elon Musk, and it all is so that Russia, China, and I guess an oligarch run United States with Trump kind of run the world. But they can only do that if they make us poor and sick and confused and scare and victims of terrorism. I'd like to coin the phrase tariffs by terrorism, or terrorism by tariffs. And that's exactly what Trump is doing by making people scared, imposing the tariffs, and they back off, so they bribe him. He loves it. He loves to see the stock market go up and down. And so here's what somebody has suggested is going on with regard that here it is. It's a step one, announce tariffs and the stock market drops. Okay. Then step two is billionaires buy lots of stock. Okay. Step three, immediately roll back the tariffs and the stock market rebounds. The rich get richer. See how that works? They don't care about us. It is about them. MAGA is going to figure this out eventually. They may go into hiding, but your MAGA idiot friends, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to be embarrassed. So here's something that a friend on Facebook has posted, which I think is really interesting, because it lets you know that Elon Musk is a big fat liar. Yes, we should be cutting waste and fraud out of the federal government spending. There's very little fraud. But if something is outdated or duplicative, or you want to have some policy arguments in an open hearing, do it. But what Elon Musk is doing, and they're inventing, these accusations of all of this fraud, and then they have to pull back on all of this. They're not doing this to help us, people. Musk's Doge is trying to cut the number of government employees, not to help us. They don't want any government oversight over what they are doing to get richer and to ruin this country. Makes sense, doesn't it? So Musk, his Doge is trying to cut the number of government employees. The MAGA party rails against the number of federal government employees. But in 1970, there were 2.92 million federal employees. In 1990, there were 3.4 million federal employees. In 2024, there were just over 3 million federal employees. We haven't been bloating the government with federal employees, particularly when you look at our overall population. In 1970, there were 204 million people living in the United States. In 2022, there were well over 333 million people living in the United States, an increase of 63%. So since 1970, the U.S. population has increased by over 63%. This data is a couple years old, but the number of federal employees has remained basically the same. So why this sudden crisis? It didn't occur in the first Trump administration. We didn't have Elon Musk around then, did we? No, he was just that weird guy with the weird cars. They want to cut the federal government. Well, not really, because what they're doing is they're cutting programs and spending and then giving it to Elon Musk for Starlink and for Tesla trucks and for his companies. Understand? It is to benefit him and other oligarchs. So other oligarchs, people are getting the hint, and they're going to start playing this game. And it's not so much to cut federal spending, because clearly they're not. They're just shifting it to put it in their pockets. It is to cut the people out of the federal government whose job it is to administer the programs, to keep track of the money, and to have oversight, meaning we're not going to put up with the crooks like Elon Musk. So if you don't have federal employees in these agencies to keep an eye on this stuff, Elon Musk has free hand, and Trump. They are crooks. They are crooks. They are thieves. They are con men. We know this. Trump is a convicted felon. Trump has been sued so many times because he's a crook and a felon and a con man and a fraud. He can't even operate charities in New York, he and his family, because they stole from childhood cancer charity. And then he's cut childhood cancer funding, research, cancer funding, research funding in the federal budget. And then he has the nerve to use some kid with cancer as a prop at the State of the Union address. And Republicans, those sick little idiots that they are, and they are sick now. They are not fooled. Your MAGA friends on Facebook, your high school friends, they are fooled. The people that go to the rallies, they are fooled. They're not very bright. Trump loves the poorly educated. We call them low information voters, as I've said before. But the members of Congress cheering this on, they are evil. They are evil because they do know better. They do know better. The people at Fox News, they do know better. I think the reason Neil Cavuto finally left Fox News was because it got too bad even for him, that he knew in this Trump administration he would be forced to defend the indefensible. I used to be on his shows rather often back in the day. He seemed like a good guy. And in the previous era of Trump, he occasionally would speak out against him. Not a lot. Nothing that's going to get him in too much trouble. But he was trying to at least appear to be a straight shooter. I think he left because he knew now it's just going to be a complete crime operation. That it's dead. That Trump is just going to be looting. That people were going to die. Lots and lots of people were going to die. I don't think that Neil left for health issues because Neil had serious health issues in the past and he didn't leave. I think he left because this was just too much. And I think we've seen that a lot. Even our so-called friendly media, fair media, actual media, Fox News is not news, but they've sort of given up and thrown in the towel. CNN has a long time ago. They'll throw a few flares up and pretend to be real news, but yeah, they tanked when Jeff Zucker handed the network over to Trump. So your idiot MAGA friends and family don't understand this. And I wonder if they're even going to understand it when they're hit with this stuff. Are they going to believe the spin? Again, Trump's not holding press conferences, standing behind a lectern in the White House press briefing room saying, we're cutting Social Security. No, they're just cutting the number of employees and shutting down Social Security field offices so that there's nobody there to send out the checks. So technically, they can say, well, we didn't do it. It's just such an inept organization. We have to privatize it. Just like with the tariffs. We don't need these tariffs. There's no reason for it. It's a made-up drug issue coming over the Canadian border. It's not happening. It's invented. This is terrorism by tariffs and to line Trump's pockets, his own pockets. Everything they are doing, everything, is for Putin and our own oligarchs. Everything. If you look at everything Trump has done since he would not put his hand on either one of the two Bibles in front of him, even the Trump Bible, when he was sworn into office in January, Everything he has done is for the oligarchs who then bribe him and line his own pockets, and for Putin. There are some MAGA that are figuring it out, not many, but they will. And it will be too late. It will be too late. So I think it's important that we keep on top of this stuff and talk about it. I'm encouraged by the courts. I just recorded my podcast over on Patreon with Glenn Kirshner, and we talk about what's happening in the courts and what can, what we think can happen that could be helpful, what we hope will be helpful, and what the final battle will be with regard to Trump. And Glenn seems to think it would be, will our military stand? Will our military stand? Anyway, the one thing that Trump loves more than anything else is money. Always has. So once you keep that in mind, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of connect the dots. And most of this stuff is pretty out in the open anyway. But right now, tariffs, terrorism, terrorism, it is to line his own pockets. It is to line his own pockets. So he now apparently, with Elon Musk in the room today, has said that to the cabinet members that they control who's hired or fired at the federal agencies. He said this with Musk in the room. I'm still trying to figure out what was at play there. I've read some different viewpoints on this. It might be for some sort of legal liability. I don't know. But pretty sure that if Elon Musk goes to a cabinet member and says, these are the jobs and the people who should be eliminated immediately, it will happen. No one's going to stand up to him. There's been a few that have made some noise, but, Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. But I think it's also possible that on the orders of Trump, the secret orders of Trump, they're all trying to hold just one little thing off to the side in case they need to deal with Elon Musk on a legal level. So maybe they're keeping, one little piece of information, one little trick up their sleeves for that. We'll see. We'll see. But right now, our biggest concern is Social Security and Medicare being cut. Medicaid is already kind of being cut. Again, this is that sleight of hand where they order a cut in the HHS budget, which can't happen. You can't meet those funding cut requirements unless you cut Medicaid, which 25% of Americans are on. So again, he's not going to stand up and say, we're cutting Medicaid. They just put it in the budget so that you're forced to do it. And I'm not buying it, of course. You're not buying it. But your idiot friends, your MAGA friends that wear the funny red hat, go on Facebook, we're owning the libs. They'll be the last to figure it out. And they'll probably believe him when he says, well, can't really help it. I mean, we didn't say specifically to cut Medicaid. We didn't tell anybody not to send out the Social Security checks. It's just such an inept agency that they can't get the job done. So we must privatize it. I think I'm right on this.